to start our college recruiting seminars or classroom sessions, I wanted to really hit home on what I think is really the foundation of college recruiting for any player in our program or really any player out there in the entire country. Um, to me personally, the foundation of college recruiting begins with a question. And that question has to be where do you see yourself fit in terms of the different ranges in college baseball? Are you a Division One player? Are you a Division Two type player? Are you a D3 player, an NAIA type player, or are you a JUCO level player? That is the foundation to me of where everything gets built on after that. And we'll go into the reasons why I think that's the foundation. But that is the main question you have to ask yourself as a baseball player and really as a family. Hey, parents, where do you see your son or daughter fitting in? Players, how do you project yourself at the college level? And everything from that point on gets built off of that. So make sure you sit down tonight and ask yourself, where do I actually see myself fitting in, school wise, level wise? It's an important question. So sit down and really think about it tonight. I want to make sure that people and our players specifically really understand that within the different ranges of college baseball, so the different levels, D1, D2, so on and so forth, within those levels, there are different levels within those. So, for an example, a lot of times you hear kids say, "I want to play Division One baseball. That is my dream. That is my goal." Well, what type of Division One baseball are we talking about? Are we talking about the SEC, which is typically one of your best conferences in the entire country, schools such as Florida or Tennessee, things like that? Or are we talking about maybe the MEACC, which is a conference with Delaware State or Savannah State, Norfolk State, usually those types of schools? The difference between those two schools or two conferences is vast. So I want people to be very careful of saying, well, I want to play D1, or I think the level of baseball I can play is D2, or whatever the case is, because there's so much of a variance within those levels of college baseball that a lot of times there's D2 schools out there that are better than some D1s out there in terms of talent wise. So you got to be very careful when you put down just a broad label of where you want to play at. I wanted to give you guys another example of levels within levels of college baseball for you guys to see. And we're going to touch base on the junior college route on this one. And we're big believers in sending players to the junior college level for a number of reasons. We're not going to get into those reasons right now. We will do another video session that I'll send out to you guys where we'll touch base about the junior college level, the positives, the negatives, the myths that are associated with junior college and all the different things that it entails. As I think a lot of people are not quite sure what the junior college level is about. But these two examples are relatively local. One is Wabash Valley, and Wabash Valley, we've sent a numerous amount of kids there, and it is usually ranked top 5 in the country every single year at the junior college level. And it should be popping up on your screen right now, but this is a list of just in 2016 and 2017 of the type of kids that they sent off to 4-year schools. And it's quite the list. Every single year, this is the same thing over and over for them. And this is a school in Illinois, and not a lot of people know about it. Another example is Iowa Western, not too far away. And again, it should be popping up on the side of your screen, but this is in 2018, the type of players that they sent off. Number of draft picks. You're talking about SEC schools. You're talking about Big Ten schools. You name it. This is the type of talent that's out there that people don't realize at the junior college level. And I think it really shows the different levels within that level that you can go out and find. So let's get back to the question that we had raised earlier and the foundation of recruiting for baseball or softball or really any sport out there. And that question was, where do you see yourself fitting in college baseball wise? When we talk about the foundation, everything gets lined up and built upon that foundation. And when we ask ourselves, where do we see ourselves fitting? That's going to determine how your process continues to go. Okay. The question of where do I see myself fitting into will then answer, okay, when does your process actually start? Um, where colleges may see you at. Okay, if you're a high level SEC type player and you want to go to Florida, there's a really good chance that Florida is not going to see you at a very local, small time tournament with a bunch of local travel programs with not a lot of talent in it. Okay, that's just how it is. Now, if you're a D3 type player and want to stay local, different story. They may come to something like that to see you. Okay, they don't have as much travel budget to go see you elsewhere. Okay, so that question can be start to be answered when you first ask yourself what level you fit into. Okay, different things like who do you start sending emails to in communication? How about the money situation for your family? Okay, if again you're a kid that wants to go down to Florida, you may have to get down there to go either visit or to go to a camp or go to tournaments down there. But if you're going to fit into that D3 type range, well, why are you going to spend money by going down to a camp in Florida if that's not a place that you see yourself playing at? So a lot of these questions start getting answered by beginning of that foundation piece, asking yourself where you fit into. Let's start talking about the actual time frame for the different divisions in college baseball. And I think this is an important part of the building blocks of the college recruiting cycle. And I think it's important because it allows players to fully understand when that process may start. For guys that are the D3 type player, okay, a lot of times they'll see players start getting recruited as a freshman or sophomore, and they kind of have a freak out moment where they go, oh my gosh, I am not being recruited right now. Am I missing out on something? Am I even going to play college baseball? And I want players to really take a deep breath and understand the different time frames at the different levels so they have a good understanding of typically when things will should or could start for them. So when we talk about really high-end baseball players, SEC schools, Pac-12, Big Ten type schools, a lot of times that recruiting process can start as early as eighth grade. Sometimes that we've seen it, ninth grade, and sometimes it can go into junior year. Not typically, it will go into senior year. Not saying that it can't happen, but when I'm talking about these time frames, I'm going to give you what we typically see. So with those high end D1 schools, typically from eighth to ninth grade into junior year. Now, when we start talking about mid majors and your Wisconsin Milwaukee's and your UIC's and your Wright States, your Western Illinois, Eastern Illinois, those types of schools, you're typically talking about sophomore year and well into junior year. That's usually the time frame for those mid-major schools. And to give you an example of a mid-major school I just recently had a conversation with was Central Michigan. Now, we've sent a number of players to Central Michigan. Great program. They've had really good success the last few years. That's a school that typically recruits relatively late. They are still recruiting guys that are senior year of high school. Just had a conversation. It was probably about a month ago that they were still looking for an arm, a senior arm. They do that because they are a mid-major program and they can't afford to lose out on guys. They can't afford to bring a guy in and then all of a sudden he's not a good fit or he can't compete at that level. That's not how they do business. That's not how they go about things. And I can appreciate that. And I wish things would change into that way more in terms of college baseball. But that's a program that typically waits quite a bit because they want the right fits. They want the right guys. They don't want to see a guy come in and all of a sudden he leaves after a month and a half because he can't fit in, because he can't compete at that level, whatever the case is. When we start talking about D2 schools, again, typically those schools will start recruiting. You're talking more at the D2 level. You're talking more junior year and even well into senior year. You see a lot of D2 schools that will get the D1 maybe caliber guy that maybe just didn't get the offers that he thought he was going to at the D1 level or the right fit, that'll go to the D2 route. So D2 schools more the junior year into senior year. When you start talking about D3 schools, now you're talking about more late junior year and well into senior year. Okay, those are the schools that typically wait quite a while, and you'll hear into the summer that of a senior year class that they're still looking for guys, that they're still out there actively recruiting a number of guys. So that's where when we talk about players that are at the D3 caliber, knowing where they sit at in terms of talent level and understanding this time frame, going okay, I'm probably a D3 type player. It's the end of my sophomore year. I know I have some time. I know I can work on my body still. I know I can lift. I know I can work on my game, and the process will start maybe more typically at this time, right? So now when we're talking about the junior college level, I always say they try and kind of let the dust settle a little bit. They're not going to go out there and recruit a kid that's a sophomore because typically if they're recruiting a sophomore, that player is probably a really high level D1 player. He's probably going to go to the D1 level anyways. So now they're wasting their time. So junior colleges typically wait to kind of let that dust clear and that dust settle a little bit to see what's out there. They'll typically recruit junior year and well into senior year. Now, again, there's different levels within the junior college route, but typically that's what you see: end of junior year and well into senior year. And then you got the NAIA, which we'll talk about NAIA a little bit more on a different recording of this. It's not governed by the NCAA, but typically I tell people the time frame that they recruit out of is more the D2 to D3 type range. You'll see players that are D1 caliber players at the NAIA level. You'll see D2, D3 type players within the program there. But typically, you're talking about junior year and well into senior year that those NAIA programs are typically going to recruit. So, kind of rehash, I think it's important for those timelines for players to really start understanding when that stuff happens. So they can have a good plan kind of leading up to it. Okay, I'm a D3 player, I'm a sophomore. I know this thing should start maybe starting for me more late junior year and into senior year. I'm going to do everything I can on the front end to get as good as I can as a baseball player, to change my body around, to lift, to get all my ducks in a row in terms of academics and be ready for when that time frame comes. Or if you're a high-end SEC type player, okay, and that's where you want to go as an eighth grader, okay, well, let's get this ball rolling, okay, and get out there and start getting seen. But again, it comes down to understanding where that foundation is, knowing that where level that you fit into, and now you know the time frames, and you can start building those layers into the college recruiting process.